Nora Speaks is a weekly podcast that tugs at the soul and consciousness of the Black community. With show topics such as youth empowerment, education, women's impact, and civic engagement, Nora Speaks challenges the listener to not only join the movement, but be the movement. On the show, you'll learn from insightful guests who have demonstrated capacity in these fields and more, and I'm your host, Nora Muhammad. Welcome to the show. Welcome to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast, and I am your host, Nora Muhammad. I am happy to be back with you for another episode of the podcast, and this episode is episode 182, and I'm very excited to be with you. I'm very excited for this opportunity to share with you ideas, thoughts, my opinion. And I strive to always base what I say on the truth. And this podcast is one to share ideas and wisdom and knowledge, and to help us in general just be better to ourselves, better to our families, better to our community. And if you are not a subscriber, I encourage you to subscribe on the streaming app that you are listening to this episode, and please be sure to let your friends and family know about this episode and the podcast if this podcast has value to you. So let's jump right into episode 182. And you know, my last couple episodes, I was talking about the impact that modern music, the culture, how that impacts our young people, what they think about themselves, how they problem solve, how they come to formulate decisions and develop mindsets. And I was sharing in episode 181 asking, when do words matter? Because, the idea that we allow any type of language to stream into the minds and into the hearts and into the ideas of our young people, we should be responsible. And as a community, it's something that we should talk about. And in episode 180, I talked about the pandemic response on our youth and how the culture, the panic, the hype that was created during the pandemic from government officials, from media, how that impacts the mental health of our young people. And so now, episode 182, here we are listening to artists and news pundits and some politicians. We're listening to them upset, expressing their frustrations with Spotify. And Joe Rogan, who has a podcast on Spotify. And because of alleged COVID misinformation or disinformation that he has shared, that he has promoted. This is what they say. I don't listen to his show, but this is what's being said, that he's sharing vaccine misinformation and he's bringing guests on his show that mislead people. I don't know. I don't know if he is or if he isn't. You can tell me if you listen. And it's interesting to me that there seems to be a small mobilization, if you will, of artists who are trying to give Spotify an ultimatum. It's either Joe Rogan or us. And when I learned that there were Black artists, Black podcast hosts, who also took the same posture to remove their content from Spotify, or who found Joe Rogan to be so problematic in what he's saying on Spotify that they're removing their content, it just reminds me that we are missing the mark, and we are focusing, in my opinion, we're focusing on the wrong things. Some say that some Black creators have said that they aren't necessarily removing their content from Spotify because of what Joe Rogan has said about the vaccine, but what he and his guests may have said about Black people. And again, I say that, in my opinion, we focus on the wrong things, and we're giving the wrong things importance. And Nora Speaks is a podcast that is on Spotify, and I will keep my podcast on Spotify, at least for now. I don't see any reason to remove it from Spotify. I'm glad that it's one more application where our people can access content and media, where we're having thought, serious conversation, where we're not just, chuckling and talking about liquor and weed. We can listen and develop thoughts and ideas and strategies about ways that we can improve upon the conditions of our people. That is what Nora Speaks podcast is about. And, whether artists want to stay or go, that's certainly up to them. But in terms of having a conversation with you, this audience, the Nora Speaks audience, I just want to share my opinion on it. I think it's misguided. I think that we are targeting the wrong thing. Joe Rogan and Spotify, that's not our bullseye. We have other issues that are much more impactful on us than what Joe Rogan is saying, than Spotify keeping their relationship with Joe Rogan. And, with all due respect, I just think, well, who cares? Who cares? Certainly, I have Spotify open right now on my phone, and I'm kind of just looking down, and I just Googled rap hits from 2010 to 2022, and I'm looking at some of these artists. 21 Savage, let's see, I see Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, of course, right? Okay, Chief Keef, Post Malone, let's see, ASAP Rocky. I see, I said 21 Savage, he's on here quite a bit. Okay, Little Dicky, Fetty Wap, Rich Homie Quan. Who else is on here? Lil Baby, Da Baby, Chief Keef, Drake, Travis Scott. Quite a few artists. Gucci Mane, 2 Chainz, ASAP Rocky, 6ix9ine. And these artists are on Spotify. And interestingly enough, Young Boy, Never Broke Again, he's on here. Black Bach or Block Boy, JB, A Boogie with the Hoodie, Polo G, Offset, Bobby Shmurda. So these folks are on here, and their music, all of these tracks has an E for explicit lyrics, every single one. Now, I am not going to play their music for you. Not only do I not have the rights to it, but this is not an explicit podcast, and I don't want to change the rating on this show, and I certainly don't want to read you the lyrics, because you could be listening to the show in the car with your children. But we know what these rappers rap about, right? Drugs, anonymous sex with women, abusive sex with women, sexual assault, selling drugs, killing Black people, living irresponsible lives. Now, we may say, well, it's just entertainment. They're not mentors. They're not role models. We can't look to rappers to raise our children, right? I've heard even some rappers say that. Well, look, I'm not raising your children. Now, let's consider, we are upset, not we as in me, but some of these artists, some of these creators, some of these podcast hosts who have really great shows. You want to pull the positive content that you have. And if you think that Spotify is allowing Joe Rogan and probably others who say similar things to what Joe Rogan says, they just have a smaller platform. So you're going to walk away and leave that hurtful, harmful content as you describe it. You're going to pull your positive content, and you're just going to leave what you think is damaging. So I don't know. I think that's backwards, and certainly people have to go where their values are. But I just think it's ironic that we will have nothing to say about record executives who produce and promote content, music that one, we can talk about how they took live instruments out, and we know the benefits of live instruments on our bodies, on our minds. We know how that, or maybe we don't know. Maybe that's something that we can talk about. So the music doesn't have live instruments. The music, has beats. And so they've taken kind of the soul out of the music, if you will. If you remember, Public Enemy asked who stole the soul in one of their albums years ago, because the soul is being removed from the music. And then the language is harmful, it's hurtful. We're talking about killing each other, talking about anonymous sex, women not valuing themselves, or the men not valuing themselves, or the women, or the other guys that they're talking about killing and murdering. I mean, but we will stay on Spotify knowing that these artists are there, and we will have nothing to say. But Joe Rogan talks about a COVID vaccine. Or I've known that there has been a montage of clips shared with Joe Rogan saying the N-word. We care about Joe Rogan saying the N-word? Joe Rogan does not hurt me if he says the N-word, if he calls me the N-word, as much as it hurts me so much more to have our black young artists who are saying and doing horrible things to themselves and to each other. I don't know. I think that we've missed the mark. I think that we're focusing on the wrong things. And, it's just interesting to me, the kinds of responses that we have, the kind of mobilizing that we do, except when we have to look at ourselves in the mirror and confront the content that our own people are making, confront the record executives that are promoting this. And, we're going to, jump on this wagon and with some of these older, established, mainstream artists who are voicing their opinion about what their own brothers and sisters are allowing. And we have our brothers and sisters who are saying awful things. In the last episode, I read lyrics from Juice WRLD. And initially, I was going to read lyrics from that song with Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion, WAP. I was going to read some of those lyrics. And I was just, and if you've heard the song or if you've read the lyrics, you know that it's highly, highly explicit. But I was wanting to share those lyrics with this audience because sometimes we listen to the music, but we don't pay attention to the content. We don't pay attention to the lyrics, even though we may sing the lyrics. Sometimes just reading it can present a new reality for us. So I started to read those lyrics. And in fact, I did read them. I recorded myself doing it. And I thought, well, I will just bleep out, the curse word. I'll bleep out the vulgar words so that I can maintain my rating. I don't want Nora Speaks to have an E for explicit because I want families to be able, as I said, to listen to this together. I know some groups use the Nora Speaks podcast with their when they're mentoring and with young people, and so I don't want this to be a show that can't be interactive or consumed by young people. So as I said, I read the lyrics and I was just going to bleep some of the stuff out. But then I thought, no, I don't even, it was just too demeaning. It was too disgraceful. These black women who are majestic and glorious creatures, blessings from the Almighty, to use such degrading language in talking about themselves and the encouragement that they were giving to young girls to engage in what's essentially prostitution. You can give up sex or do this or do that and make sure you ask for a new phone, make sure you ask for a new bag, make sure you ask for some new boots. Like, really, is that all that we are worth? So we have content that demonstrates that we have a very low worthiness rating of ourselves, and yet we want to focus on Joe Rogan and Spotify's permission of him. It's really outrageous, and let's focus on the right things. Let's focus on the things that we can change, that we are responsible for. And I think this goes for, with Facebook and Twitter, and we want to be upset because of what, Trump is tweeting, and we want to be upset with, Twitter creating filters or censoring or shutting down pages because of people are talking about COVID and vaccines and it's misinformation. And I see young Black girls shaking their behinds as if they are dancing for money, right? We see young women, young Black women who are underdressed, who are posing, and people, grown men and women, just putting some of the most ignorant and salacious things in the comments, right? So we can get on these social media platforms and act a total savage fool. No warnings, no community standards. It's a go. But somebody say something about the government's agenda to manage public health with a vaccine or or share information about this virus, and we want to give that all the attention in the world. I still say that, we were terribly hypocritical when we wanted to, and some did, went after Nicki Minaj about the tweet about the COVID vaccines reactions, adverse reactions in that individual. And then Joy Reid, and I'm not trying to bang on Joy Reid, but Joy Reid, that's the content from Nicki Minaj that you're concerned about? Come on, we're focusing on the wrong things. Let's focus on the right things. Let's focus on the things that are most impactful to the development of our young people, that's most impactful to the confidence building of our young people. If we want to call this kind of nonsense empowering, if we want to call this kind of stuff just fun, well, and we have what we have. We want to ignore this. We have what we have, and we are where we are. We have to do better. We have to do better. We have to focus on the right things and stop putting so much attention on the wrong things. This is my opinion on the matter. I'd be very happy to hear yours. You can email me at nora@noraspeaks.com. That's nora@noraspeaks.com. I look forward to your questions, to your comments, and thank you always for the emails and the messages that you send me. I do appreciate it. Until next time, stay in peace. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. Be on the lookout for a new episode coming at you fresh next week. And as always, if you want to learn more about me and the work that I do, visit my website, norahmuhammad.com. Or if you have a listener question, email me at info@noraspeaks.com. You can also follow the Nora Speaks podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Nora Speaks Podcast. I'll be sure to include links in the show notes. If this show has value to you, please subscribe, rate, and review, and share it with family and friends. And be sure to check out previous episodes. And remember, don't just join the movement, be the movement. Stay in peace.